Hey everybody, Josh Peck here. Hope you are doing well. Well, a remarkable scientific achievement has stirred both wonder and concern among many, especially those of us who look to the Bible for understanding the world's past and future. Many of you have probably heard about this, but there's another layer of this that kind of came out more recently that I want to talk about. Before we get to that, though, I want to make sure to give you guys the opportunity to subscribe, click the bell to turn on all notifications, if you would. When I look into analytics, it shows that about half of the audience who watches these videos are not subscribed and half are. Some of that is because YouTube will unsubscribe people. I don't know why they do that, but I've heard it from a lot of people, and that's even happened with me with some channels that I follow. So just make sure you click the bell and make sure you turn on all notifications so that you know when we put one of these out. Also, if you would like a transcript of this video and everything that I do where it's applicable, I basically, what I do is I write a long blog posts, and then I use that as kind of the script for these videos, and I make the text, the post, actually available in a couple different ways depending how you want it. If you go to joshpeck.substack.com, and all of these links are in the description below, if you go there, you can access it on a web page, kind of just like a blog site. And there you also get the audio-only podcast of everything I do. Or you can go to dailyrenegade.com and get a membership there, and then that way you could actually download the PDF, and then you could have it in your own files if you don't want to deal with a website. I think the best of both worlds is to just subscribe to both, the Substack and dailyrenegade.com. Then you get full videos that's not available anywhere else. A lot of the times we only do half videos on YouTube and Rumble and elsewhere, particularly YouTube because of the censorship, whereas at dailyrenegade.com we're not censored. Also, Daily Renegade has a community tab where we can all fellowship together and talk and not have to worry about censorship. So best of both worlds. Daily Renegade, not only do you get the watch page with all the full videos and the community, but you can also download the PDFs. Then the Substack, you get the audio-only podcast if you're driving in your car or if you're doing chores around the house or something and you just want to listen to something. You can do that through the Substack link, joshpeck.substack.com, and you get if you don't want to download a PDF and you just want the web page, you just want to read it on a web page, you can do it there. So all that aside, that was a lot. All right, so scientists at a company called Colossal Biosciences have announced, and many of you have probably heard this, that they've brought back a creature long thought lost to history, which is the dire wolf. So this animal, a fierce predator that roamed North America, they say over 10,000 years ago, is said to have been reborn through advanced genetic techniques. Now, for us Christians, this news calls to mind the strange and troubling events of Genesis 6, where fallen angels mingled with humanity to produce the Nephilim. And ancient texts, like the Book of Enoch, speak about further sins against nature itself. And we're going to get into all that. But could this be a sign that we're returning to the days of Noah, as Jesus warned in Matthew 24:37? So let's explore what has happened and how it connects to Scripture and other ancient writings. So, the dire wolf, it's known scientifically as Anocyandaris. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it was a massive canine, larger and stronger than today's gray wolves. It stood about 3 feet tall at the shoulder, weighed up to 200 pounds, and had jaws powerful enough to crush bone. Fossils show it lived across the Americas, from Canada to South America, until it vanished thousands of years ago, possibly due to the global flood of Genesis. And that's something that I've wondered, are certain species dead because God didn't want those to come back from the flood? But on April 7th, 2025, Colossal Biosciences declared that they had successfully de-extincted, that's what they call it, the dire wolf. The first litter of pups, which were born on October 1st, 2024, emerged from a carefully controlled process that blended ancient DNA with modern science. So this actually happened months ago, and we're only hearing about it just now. That makes me wonder what else is out there. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Leave us a comment. Let us know. We got more to talk about, but just let us know. How far do you think that they actually are? Do you think they're cloning humans yet, or do you think that that's gonna happen in the future? We'll talk about that a little bit. Also, what do you think about the extinction of the dire wolf, or anything that may have been extinct because of the global flood? Do you think that was God saying, "I don't want these things on the earth anymore"? Do you think that all of the species that were wiped out were all genetic experiments from the Nephilim? I'd love to know your thoughts. Leave them in the comments. But so this process began with the discovery of dire wolf DNA preserved in fossils. So scientists extracted this genetic material, just tiny fragments of the creature's essence, and compared it to the DNA of living canines, especially the gray wolf, which shares a distant kinship with the dire wolf. So using a technology called CRISPR and artificial intelligence, and I think that's interesting. Apparently, from what I understand, without artificial intelligence, they wouldn't have been able to do this. But because artificial intelligence can examine things so much faster and more effectively than we can, it was able to actually do this. Which again makes me wonder, what else are they going to do with artificial intelligence? What other creatures, hybrid creatures, are they going to create? And it's funny because many of you know, not that long ago, I was on L.A. Marzulli's channel. And in that, and I reposted it on my channel, but in that interview, this was maybe a week before the most recent conference that we just did. So this was maybe a month ago. This was not that long ago. We were talking about artificial intelligence, and LA was asking me, what are the capabilities? What can it do? And I said, I think it's going to get to the point where it can literally just basically 3D print new creatures that have never existed. And I had a couple of people telling me that wrote in and said, artificial intelligence doesn't work like that. We're miles away from that. Well, here we are. Now, it's not 3D printed exactly, but due to artificial intelligence, these creatures now exist. So again, using technology called CRISPR and artificial intelligence, they edited the genes of gray wolf embryos, inserting dire wolf DNA to recreate traits like its size, strength, and its bone-crushing bite. These altered embryos were then implanted into surrogate mothers, gray wolves and wolf dog hybrids, whose wombs nurtured the pups until birth. The result, Colossal claims, is a, quote, functionally distinct, end quote, direwolf, an animal that looks and acts like its ancient ancestors, though it's not an exact copy. And this is where it gets kind of scary. These creatures are not exactly direwolves, but are instead hybrids that have never existed before. These are brand new creatures. So 4 pups were born, and they are being raised in a 2,000-acre preserve in Ohio, where they will be studied and cared for. Now, while they say they're not going to be released into the wild, there have been talks about the goal of eventually releasing de-extincted creatures into the wild, and this will obviously corrupt any bloodline coming from these creatures, and it'll be impossible to contain it once it's loose. This is exactly what caused the flood of Noah. Colossal Biosciences calls this a triumph of science and a step towards repairing ecosystems damaged by extinction. So they argue that dire wolves could one day help control populations of invasive species or restore balance to nature, but of course, they always have 100% altruistic reasons for these types of experiments. The company's leaders, including co-founder Ben Lamb, see this as part of a broader mission to bring back other lost creatures like the dodo bird and the Tasmanian tiger and even woolly mammoths. They say these dire wolves are not clones, but engineered organisms blending ancient and modern DNA to thrive in today's world. Again, these are new creatures that have never existed before, and we created them. Humans created them, very similar in scope to how the fallen angels created Nephilim by mixing their genetics with human beings. That's why this is so much worse than just de-extincting a dire wolf or finding some way to clone it. And that would be bad enough. That already would be bad enough. But this isn't even that. This isn't exactly a dire wolf. It is a hybrid. It is something that has never existed before as far as we know. Now, at least not all agree with the rosy view put on by put out there by proponents of this kind of science. And it's not only Christians, but even some scientists argue that these creatures are not true direwolves, but they're hybrids, more like enhanced gray wolves than a resurrection of the past. Others warn of ecological risks. Without natural predators, dire wolves could disrupt food chains, if they ever escaped captivity. Ethicists question whether humans should play God by reviving what nature let die. Now, as mentioned before, Genesis 6, 1 through 4 tells of a time before the flood when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and they bore children to them. These were the mighty ones who were of old, men of renown. And that's from Genesis 6, 4. Now, these sons of God, widely understood by many scholars and early church fathers as fallen angels, defied God's order by mating with humans, producing the Nephilim, giants whose wickedness filled the earth with violence. The Lord saw this corruption and declared, "My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh." That's Genesis 6:3. And that set the stage for the flood to cleanse the world. But the story doesn't end with human corruption. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text found among the Dead Sea Scrolls and quoted in Jude 1, 14 through 15, expands on these events. It describes how these fallen angels, led by figures like Azazel and Semyaza, taught humanity forbidden knowledge, things like war, sorcery, and a lot more, and sinned further against God's creation. Enoch 7:5 says, "And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood." That's 1 Enoch 7:5, and that was translated from the Ethiopic text. But this suggests that they tampered with animals, perhaps mixing species or altering nature in ways God never intended. You know, no one gets into full-time ministry to make money. At least no one should. Given that, Daily Renegade accepts donations from those who care to help keep us going. Now, because Daily Renegade does not want to be told by the government what we can and can't say, we're not 501c3, so your donations are not tax deductible, but that's not why you're giving anyway, to get something back for yourself. Speaking of which, we here are never going to promise that if you donate, God will reward you with even more financial success. We're not about making promises for God here. But what I can promise is your donations are very much appreciated and help the continuation of everything we do here at Daily Renegade to reach the world with the truth of the Bible. Also, as many of you know, my son Nathan has had some very serious medical issues that we are treating with good, all-natural and holistic remedies. But of course, those are very expensive and are not covered by insurance, so your donations help go towards his health care as well. If you can't afford to donate, you can always donate your time in prayer, which is far more valuable anyway. Let's be serious. So pray for our wisdom, pray for God's guidance for us, and that we never lose focus on what's really important, which is using Daily Renegade as a light of truth that the world so desperately needs right now, especially in these times. As always, thank you so much for your generosity, and I pray God blesses you greatly. Another text, the book of Jubilees, echoes this, saying that, quote, "all flesh corrupted its ways, alike men and animals." That's Jubilees 5:2, and that, of course, hints at an unnatural union or changes in the animal kingdom. So, could the de-extinction of the direwolf be a modern reinvention of these ancient sins? Now, scientists today are not angels, fallen or otherwise, but their tools, like CRISPR mixed with AI, allow them to manipulate life in ways once unimaginable. So by pulling DNA from the dust of the earth and stitching it into living creatures, they're blurring the lines between what God created and what man can try to remake. The Bible declares that God made every animal according to its own kind. That's from Genesis 1:25, and that's a phrase repeated to emphasize the distinct boundaries of creation that God put in place. Yet here, humans have crossed those boundaries, merging the direwolf's ancient kind with the gray wolf's modern one. So this is not mating in the sense of Genesis 6, but the end result is the same and is a deliberate alteration of God's design. And that obviously raises questions about where such power might lead. Now, Jesus warned that the end times would mirror the days of Noah. So it says, but as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. So that's the words of Jesus. That's Matthew 24:37 through 38. Now, many interpret this to mean not just everyday life, but a return to the moral and spiritual chaos of that era. Wickedness, pride, and rebellion against God. The Nephilim and the corruption of flesh were hallmarks of Noah's time, and some see today's genetic engineering as a step towards that same defiance. If fallen angels once twisted creation, might humans now do the same, unwittingly fulfilling prophecy? Could demons and fallen angels actually be inspiring these technological advancements? And if so, what's the end goal? You know, this is something that I've talked about before with AI. It's so mysterious, and there's AI that's so advanced, humans don't even really understand how it works. And I don't remember if it was that same interview or maybe a different interview. It was probably the same one that I did with LA, but I posed the question, how would we know if AI was or wasn't being influenced by demons? Like, how would we know that? Scientists certainly wouldn't know because they're not looking for demons, and we may or may not be able to recognize it. But what if demons are using AI? What if Satan is using AI to influence these things and basically teach humanity, again, just like it was when the Watchers fell? Instead of directly teaching mankind things, now it's going through the guise of AI. Because again, there's a clip from Joe Rogan where they were talking about it, and they said that this was done through AI. It couldn't have been done without AI. So what if AI is being influenced by demonic forces? I don't know. But what if this is I don't think the direwolf is the end goal. You know, what's the end goal? What if this is just to test the stage, to see if humanity will accept these creatures or not? Now, by and large, the world seems more fascinated by these things than worried. And what if this is all leading to an end times goal that the enemy, Satan and his followers, can use? Is it possible that this is just the first step in creating the image of the beast and fulfilling that prophecy? It has life in it. That's what the scripture says. How does that work? And it is something that's created because the false prophet has the people create it. Or what about the theory that someone with this technology will take the DNA from the Shroud of Turin, presumably the DNA of Jesus, and do the same thing, effectively creating the Antichrist? Well, believe it or not, they've already made this. They've already made movies and other media about that exact scenario. So perhaps this is predictive programming in order to get humanity used to the idea of hybrid creatures sharing the earth with us. Now, the direwolf itself, the actual creature itself from the past, as far as we know, was not a Nephilim, nor was it inherently evil. From what we can figure, and yeah, we don't know the extent of all the experiments. Maybe some of the fossils that we find we think are regular animals. Maybe they're results of Nephilim experiments, but we don't know. It seems like the direwolf was just a big wolf. But from what we can figure, it was just a creature, not a spirit or a hybrid of angel and man and animal or anything like that. But its revival, especially in this twisted hybrid form, I think points to a broader trend: humanity's growing ability to reshape life. So Colossal Biosciences plans to de-extinct more species, and other scientists are editing human genes to cure diseases or enhance traits. This power could heal, but it could also harm. The Book of Enoch warns of knowledge misused. It says, and all the earth was corrupted by the works that were taught by Azazel. That's 1 Enoch 10:8. So today, the temptation to overstep God's boundaries remains. Proverbs 16:25 cautions, there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. So what seems like progress could lead to ruin if it defies the Creator's will, and I believe this does. But even to those who disagree, consider the practical risks as well. These dire wolves are confined for now, but what if they escape? Without predators, they could overrun ecosystems, much like invasive species already do. Their strength and appetite, capable of eating bison or deer, could threaten livestock or even human safety. Scientists admit they don't fully understand how these animals will behave, having been bred in labs and not in the wild. Remember, Genesis 6:11 through 12 says, "The earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth." So again, that's Genesis 6:11 through 12. So corruption back then led to destruction. Might it again? I got to give credit to my wife for thinking of this. We were talking about this, and she said, that reminds me of the prophecy in Revelation 6. I believe it's 6:4. Is it? Yeah, I think it. But it talks about the horsemen of the apocalypse. And one of them, it says that one of the judgments, the things that it does is people get attacked by the beasts of the earth. And I've talked about before how animal attacks are on the rise. Well, what if these things are the answer? What if these things get out in the wild, they procreate, create other hybrids, and everything gets messed up? And because these things aren't natural, they just have more violence in them. I mean, it seems like in all the texts that we looked at, violence was a part of these unnatural hybrids. Right now they look like cute little puppies and everybody's gushing over how adorable they look, but they're not fully grown. They're only a few months old. And what happens when they are fully grown? What happens a couple of generations down the line? What happens when they keep doing this? Now, on the other end of this, some may argue that God gave humanity dominion over the earth. Genesis 1:26 says, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.'" Again, Genesis 1:26. Some might argue that de-extinction fulfills this mandate, using wisdom to restore what was lost. And they might say that the direwolf's return could, inspire awe at God's creation, showing how his designs endure even in fossils. Colossal's leaders claim that they aim to heal nature, not harm it, reversing extinctions caused by human greed or neglect. But still, as many of us know, dominion is not licensed to rewrite creation. The flood came because humanity and fallen angels abused their freedom, twisting what God made good. The Dead Sea Scrolls, like the Book of Giants, describe monstrous offspring and chaos born from such acts. If you're interested in that, see 4Q531, Fragment 2 of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And while today's scientists say that they seek no monsters, their work could open doors to unintended consequences. Revelation 13:13 speaks of a future where, quote, "He performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men," end quote. That's a clear warning of deceptive wonders. Genetic marvels might dazzle the world, but they could also blind them to God's coming judgment. We need to know better. You and I need to know better, and I believe many of us watching this do, but it's also up to us to get the word out about this and to have solid reasons why this is so bad, why this is a bad idea, and how this is a warning showing we're right on the doorsteps of what I've been calling the final cataclysm, based on my new 2-volume book set, which you can get at prophecywatchers.com, where it's all about the signs that are existing today, things like this, that show we are right at the doorstep of the tribulation. Now, where does this leave us? Well, the direwolf hybrid's existence is now a fact, not a fable. 4 pups live in Ohio. For Christians, it's a moment to realize the times we're in. Of course, it's not a direct replay of Genesis 6. No angels descended, no Nephilim walk among us, as far as we know. And but it does have enough in common with Genesis 6 that we can know it's influenced by the same spirit of tampering with life. Remember, it says it'll be like the days of Noah. The days of Noah were marked by pride, corruption, and a rejection of God's order. And today, we see pride in science, corruption in nature, and a world drifting from God who put everything in order. Jesus taught vigilance. So he said, "Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming." That's Matthew 24:42. The dire wolf may seem like a small sign to some, but it should cause us to look up, pray, and seek our Lord who holds all creation in his hands. And that creation we need to have respect for. So that's all I have for you today, but I do want to know your thoughts. Please leave them in the comments below. I've asked a few questions throughout this video, and if you forgot what they are, go back, watch it again, and I really would love to know all of your thoughts. It's so important that we put our comments down there because other people read those, non-believers read those, and that alone could be the thing that gets somebody saved. You just never know. So, it's good to be active participants in this stuff. Don't just click on the next video. Leave your thoughts, even if you disagree with all this. I'd love to know your thoughts. Leave them in the comments wherever you're watching this, YouTube, Rumble, Daily Renegade, wherever. Would love to know what you all think. So yeah, that's all. Looking forward to reading your comments, and until next time, love you all, take care, and God bless. You know, if you are a Bible-believing Christian who opposes the kingdom of darkness trying to run the world right now, then you are a renegade to the satanic system. We here at Daily Renegade wear that badge proudly. So, if you're a renegade as well, head on over to dailyrenegade.com right now and get a membership today. You'll get our full catalog of Sharpening Report episodes and Daily Renegade update videos on topics such as Bible prophecy, science, technology, the Nephilim, aliens, and so much more. All of our episodes at Daily Renegade are early access, so as a member, you'll get the videos before anyone else does. Daily Renegade also offers videos not available anywhere else due to social media censorship. We also have a community page only for members where we can all fellowship together without fear of censorship. It's basically the best of Facebook and YouTube rolled into one without any of the garbage. Memberships are only $10 a month or $100 a year, and if you can do it, I suggest getting the $100 a year because it's cheaper in the long run, and essentially you get 2 months for free that way. So come join our family of renegades at dailyrenegade.com right now. The link is in the description below, and we'll see you there.